the time has really come for us to undergo collectively a quantum leap.
People have asked me, so what's next? And I really believe it's this great listening.
How do you manage different people effectively?
What if we think of spirituality at work not as the answer, but as the question, or in philosophical terms, as the inquiry, which is the ongoing question?
Imagine that a decade from now that it'll be required that the CEOs of visionary and progressive companies will be spiritual leaders.
When I started to do this work in spirituality and work, people kept saying to me, you can't use the S word. You can't talk about spirit. You can't use the G word. You can't talk about God. Use words like ethics. Use words like morality, integrity. And I said, well, there's no integrity in using the word integrity as a code word. I want to talk straight about this. I want to talk about spirituality and work. No, you can't. Well, why can't I? Well, because it's dogma, it's proselytizing. You're going to try to shove a particular point of view down our throats. That fear kept coming up and up, which was the farthest thing from my mind. And what was interesting to me was I never defined spirituality, and I never asked people for anything. But yet they continued to react so strongly to this, just the notion of spirituality and work. So I knew that I had to bust through somehow the concept of what spirituality and work could be. And so when I pushed, what I saw was people were afraid that I was coming in with the answer. This is spirituality. I know what it is. You don't. I'm going to shove this down your throat. And I said, but that's not what it is for me. And so I had to find another way of looking at it. And so I thought, and literally the penny dropped one day, and I said, what if we think of spirituality at work not as the answer, but as the question, or in philosophical terms, as the inquiry, which is the ongoing question? And I said, for you as a business person, you know what an inquiry is. Every day when you go to work, you ask this question, or this inquiry. What can I do to make my business more successful? What can I do to make my business more successful? What can I do to make my business more successful? Over and over and over. No matter what answer you come up with, you still keep asking the same question, because it's in asking the same question over and over that what you're doing is broadening and deepening your experience of what's in that arena. In the same way, I think if we approach the issue of spirituality and work as an inquiry, as an ongoing question, if you choose, I mean, you don't have to do this, but if you choose, then what I've found is it opens the door for people. It allows them to step in the way that they want to step in, which is what I want to do. I want to say to people, look, it's okay to step into this arena if you choose. I want to say it's safe, permissible, and comfortable to be in this arena, to have this conversation if you choose. If you don't, go play golf. It's fine with me. You don't have to do this. The question became then, if we transform business, and business then takes its rightful place in society, my definition, namely that every business, if it chooses, can be spiritual in whatever that means to the business. Is that sufficient? And I said to myself, no, that's not sufficient for me. That what it would do, or rather the reason that I went into spirituality and business is from the premise that if you transform business, because it has so much temporal power today, it's not the church, it's not government, that you can more easily transform the world. And so what I really said is what I want to do is have the world work. That is a new story, because the story to date has been about greed, about corruption, about hunger and poverty and war, and about things that don't work and that we can't make a difference about. Now, certainly there's also been many, many successes. You know, the airplane, telephone, conquering a lot of diseases. That's all true, but the collective story has been we're kind of almost fumbling our way through. But what if we said collectively, individually, all the individuals said collectively, our job now is to make this planet work for everybody? That would be a new, and I think for the first time, consciously committed to, aligned, and purposeful story. We're here to create heaven on earth. We're here to create this place working. And so from that then, what's your part? Is it to end a suffering? Is it to make an institution work? Is it to live a value, plant flowers on the tree, on the side of the road, smile at 100 people a day? The content doesn't matter. The content's up to you to discover. The story, the collective story, is the piece that I'd like to put forward, into which each person in humanity can then put their positive goodness. From a practical point of view, there are enormous problems associated with creating heaven on earth. End war, end hunger, reallocate resources, a lot of stuff. I know all that. But I think it's a much more exciting game to take on about how we can make that work, rather than saying, well, what can we do about war? We can't do anything. Well, then it's over. Well, fine, so what? This is, for me, I think this is going to unleash tremendous amounts of creativity. I don't have all the answers of how we can make this work, but I think if you get 6.5 billion people together, each of whom is saying, we're going to make this work, you're going to see some remarkable things happen. I think the issue of what the heart of the matter is now is really important. And the heart of the matter is this sense of hopelessness and helplessness and inability to make a difference in the world. We see the problems in the Middle East, in Afghanistan, between the Israelis and the Palestinians, and the environment, and so on and so on and so on, whatever issue there is there for you. The heart of the matter then, for me, is how can we, what would it take to make that impact that would make the world work? That, for me, is the heart of the matter. And so part of my work up to now has been to investigate things like, what is vision? How does vision work? How is vision thwarted? How do we take on an institution of society? For me, it's business, and transform business so it takes its rightful place in making the world work, not just itself work. That's what I think is the heart of the matter now. I think what livelihood is a shift in what it means to be at work. The traditional thinking or definition of work has been that work is a place that we go to earn our daily bread, to get clothes, to have a roof over our head. And that's fine for some people, but if you give them the option of a different kind of workplace, whatever the content of the work is, but a different kind of workplace, wherein what resides is something I call livelihood. An example I use is we've all been in, think of a store where you go in and buy a certain product, whatever the product is, and you go to another store to buy the same product, but when you walk in, you're welcome, they really care about you, they're really concerned about you. Which one do you want to go into? Clearly it's the latter, because your aliveness is nourished there. That is what I think is going to, that's part of this work in spirituality and business, is to transform what it means to be at work. If you give somebody a chance, an option, which I've done, between a place where you only earn your daily bread and a place where it is your livelihood that's at the forefront, people always say they'll take the latter, always. But they don't know that that's possible, because that's not what work has been, but it's now beginning to change. How did we get so far off base? We forgot. We had other priorities come up: money, survival, what we thought people who were in the know meant when they defined what work was for us, the corporations. We forgot. And it's fine to forget, but after a while, you start to say, well, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right to me. Something is wrong. I think that's what happened with communism in Russia. Yes, it might have worked at the beginning, but after 70 years of a system that was decrepit in essence, it fell apart. What I'd like to see at work is not that it falls apart, nobody wants to see that, but that it revitalizes itself, that it nourishes itself and those who work in it and those who are served by it. And I think we can balance all of that with a capitalistic profit motive. See, I think at its heart, capitalism is about creativity, new products, new services, right? But around the edges now have come parts of it that don't work. Environmental pollution, rapacious consumerism, greed. But at its heart, that's not what most businesses are about. Go into a small business anywhere. And I worked in many corporations. You know, they're not as devils as we think they are. It's that people have forgotten. And so what this movement, the spirituality in the workplace movement is about reminding people, bringing that option back. At this conference here in New York, there are a couple of senior people, senior executives. Michael Stevens, the former chairman of Aetna, Eileen Fisher, head of Eileen Fisher, both of whom have come out of the closet and realized the importance of spirituality in the workplace. It's not the totality of the workplace. You still have to do your products or services, and you still have to make money. But as a friend of mine, Bob Proctor, used to say, profit is the second most important purpose of business. The first is to do what you're here to do, your contribution. But yes, we need profitability. I mean, how could we exist without it? What would it take for us to be fully human? That's a very powerful question, that I don't think I can just answer, off the top. I mean, I'm just thinking about that question as we're speaking now. It would take really getting in touch with what we're here to do, with discovering our purpose in life, with discovering our mission, our vision in life, with getting engaged with doing that, with demanding that from other people, with making it work. We've never done this before, so we'd have to discover all kinds of new technologies, both human and physical technologies, to make it work. I remember they built many years ago a building in New York City in Times Square, and they couldn't just put, like they normally do at a building site, all the supplies there and just take it when they need it, because that would just disrupt all the traffic. They had to bring the part that was needed, whether it was a girder, a screwdriver, a screw, cement, at the time it was needed. That forced them to discover a whole new methodology of planning and implementing. I think that same thing will happen here. We'll have to discover a whole new methodology. We'll have to jump as humanity. Barbara Marx Hubbard says, we've been around for 150,000 years roughly as human beings. If you take where we were 150,000 years ago and compare it to today, and if we say what we want to do is to create heaven on earth, and we've got a chunk of time in front of us to do it, I mean, it's enormous, the potential.
Your health. There's nothing more important. And today, there's so much information available. From new drug therapies and surgery to nutrition, vitamins, herbal supplements, and exercise. Now, a series that offers traditional and alternative approaches to healthcare. What's old and what's new? Learn the latest health choices.
For more Mind, Body, Spirit, Earth programming, tune in to Wisdom on Comcast On Demand.
The mirror of the heart must be polished constantly.
Well, certainly coffee is the main business we're in. It provides the money to make everything happen. But I certainly see the growth of people the most inspiring thing. We have a very involved, engaged culture in the organization. We're presently going through some ESOP training. We've had that for a few years, and we're requiring every employee to spend 7.5 hours in total in 3 sessions learning about how the company makes money, what they can do to help the company do better, and how they can share in their lives with the organizational growth. And that training actually is being given by the employees. And some of the frontline people who have stepped forward to do the training, to see them have that doubt, should I be doing this? Did I make a mistake here? Blossom, when they start engaging people and getting involved is, to me, really one of the most rewarding things in business, to see people grow. I would say our competitive advantage is our ability to execute. And our ability to execute is all about people having a passion. And I think our SR, our social responsibility mission, we give 5% of our pre-tax profits to non-profit organizations, but we also let the employees pursue these higher good things that they might like to do. And I think it gives them a lot more passion in the business to do well, having or knowing that they're doing a greater good. They know we're not going to do good unless we are profitable. So I think, engaging them in some higher good always will lead to a more successful organization. And I think being mindful about how you do things individually, for those causes and for the organization is what is important to people. I feel social responsibility plays a key factor in the energy an organization has. I know years ago we were trying to cut expenses a lot, and we got everybody together, what can we do? And everybody got a little energized, but there wasn't much energy. And like 3 or 4 months after that, we formed an environmental committee. A lot of the employees wanted to do something with the environment. And over a sudden, everybody was running around shutting the heat, cutting down paper usage, redesigning boxes, so that we wouldn't waste as much packaging materials. It took a whole energy on to not so much make more money, but let's save the environment and let's save the earth. And I think they go hand in hand. Anytime you cut out waste and are more effective, that's good for the environment, and it's also good for the bottom line. I think a lot of companies, they say, well, let's be profitable and have a little higher good and do a little more than profit. Where I really feel that embracing those principles is the route to being the most profitable, because employees will have more passion around what they do. There's always ways that you can direct your social responsible types of funding through your supply chain, through the communities you work, and through your distribution. It's not like we get a lot of money together and figure out, well, where we're going to give it. We really try to work in the coffee communities, the distribution to us in the communities that we work, and try to find people that we can partner with distributing it that might be nonprofit as well. Farmers with financial stability really leads to more democratic societies and more stable governments in a lot of these third world countries. I was just going to say that with one of the projects in Sumatra, we really saved lives with the funding of a co-op there, because there was a lot of fighting around, and because this coffee community had the financial stability and actually had a very diverse ethnic and cultural group of people. It was insulated from the fighting because they were all working together on one common cause. And, it created the relationship amongst them that was supportive versus, adversarial. I think I always had values of providing the best product and service, treating people well. When I started hearing more about the environmental problems, I became concerned with the sustainability, became much more active in that movement. And the same with the social issues. I mean, I think half the world's population, the families earn less than $3 a day. And, some of these statistics, when you start hearing what's going on, it's like, whoa. And a lot of people don't hear that. I think even environmental issues, everybody, let's be environmentally conscious. But lots of times I don't think we keep in front of the public why it's so important. Because anytime I start hearing somebody talk about the whys, I go, wow. And it's very inspiring to go forward and do something about it.
When we were planning some of this 6 or 8 months ago, we had a meeting in Boston. Peter Senge and David Cooperrider and a number of the advisors to this. And Peter raised a very good question. He said, I don't like this word spirituality. I don't know, when you say a spiritual leader, I don't know what a spiritual leader is. Is it the CEO of a religion, head of a religion? Is it a New Age guru? What's a spiritual leader? And when I got over my kind of frustration, because I thought we could just establish this word and know what they were, I realized that he was asking a profound question, and actually the real question. And that is, imagine that a decade from now that it'll be required that the CEOs of visionary and progressive companies will be spiritual leaders. There's nothing unusual about that. There's nothing frightening or difficult to understand about that. In fact, when you look at Jim Collins' work, the guy that was at Harvard, and business guru, built to last and such, in his latest work now that he's away from Harvard and leadership, he describes top level 5 leaders, I believe he calls them, and when you look at some of the key words he pulls out, he finds humility and perseverance to be 2 of the identifiers. Well, that is so different from who we read on the front cover of our business journals every day, or celebrity icons. Maybe they get the job done, but we don't think about perseverance and humility. I don't care what faith or tradition you're from, wisdom tradition, or you're not at all. The mentors in your life remind you to be humble and to keep going. Business people are practical people. You know, we're given challenges, we're told to accomplish this bottom line, or build this plane, or build a new factory, whatever our challenge is, and then we set out and we do it. That's what our job is. That's how we understand. Well, this group of people, as kind of leaders or pioneers, they apparently see their job as really exploring these ideas in their businesses, in their communities, and all around the world. And my guess is that they will do astounding things because they have the skills, the resources, the talent, the money, the connections, and they like to get things done. What we're finding right now is that both we make a huge difference one by one, we have huge responsibility, and that there's also a collective responsibility. That the changes that are going to happen in my life are my responsibility. They're not someone else's responsibility. They're not even God's responsibility, or my higher power or the divines. They're my responsibility. Well, I'm betting my money on business. They're the agents of change. We're running the world. We're not. Senge also pointed out in his opening keynote, don't get too caught up with yourself. Educational institutions and NGOs and many other institutions, or religious institutions, are all core to our fabric as human beings. But given the great good and the great harm that we as business people and business institutions and corporations bring into the world, it seems to me that when we get it clear what our priorities are, that we in fact are all interconnected, that the good that we create in one place needs to also generate good in another place. We can't have good here and bad somewhere else. That when we change, we'll have huge impact on changing all the other institutions. My expectation is that we've only seen the beginning, and I'd get out of the way because, again, business people are practical and determined people, and I've already been approached by people I've never met before with incredible stories and incredible resources, experience, and unbelievable maturity and wisdom, who they're not in a frantic mode to get something done. They don't need to leave their name as a legacy all over the world or have another shrine built, but they're awfully determined to see spirit and business put back together.
It's hard to say, really, from my point of view, what's emerging, but I believe that business is a microcosm of what goes on, and I believe that the community part of that is critical.